Hey guys, Little Games Guy here, and welcome back to another commentary video. I swear this is not becoming a commentary channel, but there was another topic that rose up within the last week or so that I wanted to talk about. Um, and so enjoy the, sit back, relax, enjoy the gameplay footage in the background, and just listen to me ramble about, topics for like 15 minutes or so. And also, the last one did really, really well. So, yeah, that was sort of an incentive to just do this again. Um, but today I'm here to talk about live service games and why a lot of them do not work. And I do mean a lot of them. Now, over the past several years, there's been a sort of epidemic or an uprising of live service video games. Games that are supposed to be updated continuously over time. You know what I'm saying? Uh, so they release with a certain amount of content, and then they're supposed to be updated for like consistently and frequently. You know what I'm saying? They add more content. So that's what a live service game is supposed to be. Unfortunately, a lot of them do not end up like that. Like the model is designed so that these games last for freaking years, right? But they only end up lasting like a year or so. And they're lucky if they even last that long. So there's two things that happened that made me really like look into this. So one of the things that incentivized me to make this video was the shutdown of Rumbleversus. That is happening within a few days or may have already happened by the time I release this video. I don't know. But Rumbleversus was a game that it was like a WWE style battle royale. Like it was pretty freaking cool actually. It was very fun. I played it for like I think like 2 months or whatever, like straight. Like I was actually kind of loving the game. It was very fun. It was very fun to just play in the background while talking to your friends on the phone or something like that. Like it was a very fun, unique game that I was actually hoping that it would have a very successful future, but skipped to 2023 and it's announced that the game is getting shut down. Um, which is extremely unfortunate. And that was a live service game. So that was the first incident that made me want to make this video. The second one is more recent, where it was revealed that Multiversus player count has dropped 99% from its launch. 99%. Mind you, this was one of the most successful video games of last year. This game launched extremely well. Extremely well. And skip not even a year later and the game is almost completely dead. In fact, it is dead. Once you lose 99% of your player base, yeah, you are dead at that point. Like, oh my goodness, the glowdown, it's astronomical. So, and this is nowhere near the first example of this happening uh, to video games, like the live service games. Like these are just recent examples that made me want to make this video. We'll talk about a few more examples later, but like it's really starting to appear like the label of live service is less like a thing to get excited for and more like a death sentence for a video game, or multiplayer game to be more specific, or heck, even co-op games, because Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is supposed to have live service.
Huh?
Which is another reason I wanted to make this video. Uh, it just feels like this model is it's weird because it's not necessarily a terrible idea, right? It's not a horrible idea. In fact, there are examples of this working in the past. For instance, you have Warframe, right? Warframe is, in all intents and purposes, a live service game. It's a game that released with not a ton of content, right? Like we released like a handful of content, but as the years went by, they added more and more and more and more and more and more, and now the game is huge. It's freaking it has a ton of content, a ton of players, ton of cosmetics, ton of money. The game's freaking doing wonderful right now. Expansions out the wazoo. Like the game is freaking it's wonderful. Then you have Destiny 2, which is a game I do not play and I don't really like that much, to be honest. But Destiny 2 is still very successful. Despite my personal feelings on it, it's objectively very successful. The game, and again, another game that is live service, another game that released with only a handful of content, but then they added more and more and more and more and more, and then people, went into the game, saw the cool stuff being added, and they were like, okay, well, let's stay around for a while, and now the game's super successful, and now the game is in a very good state right now, financially at least. And those are like, both of those are, in all intents and purposes, live service games, yet they're doing extremely well. And it seems like the rest of the gaming industry is kind of looking at them, like, maybe not looking at them specifically, but it's sort of looking at that type of, video game life cycle, and they were like, oh, I want to do that, right? But it's clearly not working out for other companies as well as it is for, Warframe and Destiny. But why? Why are live service games not working? Why are games like Destiny and Warframe doing well when games like Multiversus, Rumbleverse, Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2042 all fall hard when they try this? And let's go ahead and look at some. I'm gonna go ahead and propose some reasons, and we're just going to see where we go from there.
Fortnite Battle Pass, booted up my PC, cause I need to get that Fortnite Battle Pass. I like Fortnite, did I mention Fortnite?
So the first reason I believe that the live service model is failing for a lot of companies is because of their interpretation of what the live service model is and what it actually is supposed to do, or how it's supposed to function, might I say. Here seems to be their interpretation of live service. Okay, so we're gonna release the game with only a handful of content, okay, but very little, a very small handful. I mean, like a baby's hand. Yeah, that small of a handful of content. Right? We're gonna release the game with that, okay. Get it some early hype, you know what I'm saying? And then we're gonna constantly pump it and pump it and pump it with stuff people can buy. Cosmetics, skins, a map every now and then. Skins, more skins, more additions to the shop. Skins. Maybe some gameplay changes. Skins. Cosmetics. Y'all get the point. Now, here is what actually seems to work in the live service model. You release a game with a handful of content, but not like a toddler's hand. I mean like an adult hand full of content. There's still a reasonable amount of things to do in the video game, even when it launches, right? And then over the months, over the years, you start adding content. That's the key word. Content. You start adding things to the game itself, okay? New characters, items, gameplay features, mechanics, maps, missions, whatever type of game you're making, right? Yet add more content, all right? Pay attention. Let me say it one more time so y'all can really hear me. Content. Cosmetics are not content because you are not updating the game, you are updating the store. The game itself is the same game when you add cosmetics. When you add content, the game changes, even if ever so slightly. It is still you're still delivering a relatively fresh experience. Live service games that work deliver content with new updates. Live service games that don't work deliver cosmetics, right? It seems to me that this is a part of the live service model that seems to be misinterpreted the most, right? You release a game with barely any content, right? But then you add a bunch of cosmetics, right? You pump a bunch of cosmetics into his stomach, hoping for it to vomit out profit. And maybe it does. But at the end of the day, the game still only has a handful of content. And 98 to 99% of the player base is experiencing the same amount of content. Why? Because 98 to 99% of your player base is not going to pay for skins. I think that's the thing that studios seem to misunderstand the most. Most people, especially nowadays, with the whole distrust behind gaming studios, do not want to pay for cosmetics and skins and weapon stuff or weapon emblems or charms or whatever free. Like, we don't want to pay for that stuff. Nobody wants to pay for a battle pass, right? You ain't adding nothing. You got to add something new to the game to keep the majority of the player base involved, okay? You may be fueled by a financial minority, but apart from that one financial minority, they're not going to keep your game alive. That financial minority is not going to keep your game alive for long, like at all. And I think that shows. Your game is still the same lackluster, bland game that it was when it launched. It doesn't matter how many cosmetics you put into it. Your video game is still the same. For example, Destiny 2 now is very different from Destiny 2 then. Warframe now is totally unrecognizable to Warframe then. Halo Infinite now is the same game from Halo Infinite then. Battlefield 2042 now is the same game from Battlefield 2042 then. Overwatch 2 now is still the same game from Overwatch 2 then. Now, in Overwatch's defense, they are adding heroes. They are adding content, right? But they don't add content nearly as much or as often as they add cosmetics, right? And I feel like that kind of brings me into my next point.
Fortnite Battle Pass, booted up my PC, cause I need to get that Fortnite Battle Pass.
The second reason why I believe that live service games nowadays are not working is because of the lack of sustainability. Live service games are like a newborn baby, right? You need to feed it, you need to, nourish it, right? You need to take care of it, right? In order for it to grow big and strong, you know what I'm saying? You got to take care of a baby in order for it to grow into a kid and then a teenager and into an adult, you know what I'm saying? But in order for it to grow, right, it needs to make it past its early stages, right? So that means you have to support it, right? Like, once a baby, grows up, into a teenager or whatever, like, they can start to look out for themselves, but when they're in their baby phase, they can't do nothing, bro. They're relying on you to keep them alive because they're still in their early stages, right? Unfortunately, most gaming studios are irresponsible parents. So they don't keep their baby nourished. In fact, they neglect it for for months. I was about to say weeks. No, months at a time. They don't feed it. They don't take care of it. They don't even tuck it to sleep at night. They are letting their baby die. But don't worry, right? In a few years, they'll give us some milk, right? In a few years, they'll give us some milk. In a few years, they may give us some baby food. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they'll give it like, I don't know, maybe a spoonful of baby food. You know, a small spoonful. You know what I'm saying? Like a tablespoon of baby food. You know, but don't worry, it's in a few years. It's coming. It's coming, guys. The baby food is coming. All right, I'm going to save my baby, but by that point, it's already dead. Right? Dark analogy / metaphor, I know, but you get the point. These games require frequent updates, right? Especially in the early stages, because, you know, once that first ride of hype is gone, you know what I'm saying? Like, the game I specifically want to point to for this exact example is, instance, is Halo Infinite. Halo Infinite had this exact problem. Halo Infinite released in the year 2021. 2021 was a special year for many reasons, but it was especially a special year in the FPS scene. In 1 year, all in 1 year, we were getting a Halo game, a Battlefield game, and a Call of Duty game. All in 1 year, all releasing relatively close to each other. It was so interesting, right? Like we were in all in 1 year, we were going to get a Call of Duty game, Battlefield game, and a Halo game, right? It was a pretty hype year, I'm not going to lie. So let me tell you what happened in each games. Call of Duty was boring and bland. Battlefield 2042 was a broken, bland mess that barely worked, and when it did, it was freaking boring. And Halo Infinite reigned supreme as the victor, right? It freaking beat both those games. It had the best reviews, it had the most players. People were talking so much about how Halo Infinite has literally won the little FPS war, but not even little, the big FPS war that was going on that year. Halo Infinite freaking rise up from the ashes of his competitors and screamed, "I have won! I have achieved victory!" Only for, you know, give it to fast forward to 2022 and the game is freaking dead. See, there was an issue with Halo Infinite from the very beginning. Besides that wave of hype and excitement that came from Halo being back, there were so many videos titled "Halo's back, baby" back then, you know what I'm saying? Like, there were so many people so excited, like, people were finally thinking Halo was back. And then the wave of hype finally crashed on the beach. People looked out back towards the ocean, and it was flat. The ocean was flat. It was dead. It wasn't even an ocean anymore. It was a freaking river. Not a river. A pond. A pond. A stationary pond. Right? This game did not release with any content. Like, at all. It released with very little content. So little content. It didn't release with a campaign, y'all. The campaign came separate and you had to pay for that. Yeah. I don't know what they were thinking either. But besides that initial wave of hype, people realized, oh yeah, wait a minute, this game has no content. Okay, well, don't worry, they're going to update it, right? No. Freaking 343 took months before releasing any updates for this game. In fact, hold on, let me do some research. Halo Infinite released with 10 maps, which is about 8 less than Halo 5, which released with 18 maps. So, yeah, that's one thing. But we're mainly here to talk about, you know, okay, how many maps do they add, right? The game's... Let's see how the map status is as of October 2022. Okay, let's see how it is. Let's see how it is.
Me personally, I wouldn't take this level of disrespect.
Yeah, they only added two maps in almost an entire a full year, and I still don't think the game has gotten any more than two maps. You may be wrong. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. But as you can see here, the game hasn't had much update. I mean, they had a whole plan, a whole chart, and as I as I'm aware, most of the things on this chart have not been completed. You know what has been added to the game though? Cosmetics, a bunch of cosmetics, right? But it's not enough to sustain the game, and so the game is pretty much dead. And that's what I'm talking about when it comes to live service games. They don't they don't supply nearly enough support or content over time so that the game can actually be alive for years and years and years. Instead, they just opt to release the game with barely any content, post a whole plan on their Twitter, be like, hey, here's the roadmap for this game, guys. Just look out, keep playing our game, we're gonna add more. And then they just take so long to add it. It's actually kind of crazy, and I feel like the similar thing has happened recently with Multiversus. The game had a fantastic launch. I mean, seriously, it was one of the most successful video game launches of last year, and probably one of the most successful fighting game launches of all freaking time. The game had millions of players, but when you have that many players, you gotta go ham on the content. You gotta have something in the oven. They didn't have anything in the oven. They were still busy freaking preparing the food. They were too busy celebrating over how many players they had, yet they didn't already have anything in the oven. So when players ate all the food up, guess what? They started leaving the dinner table. Right? They take months, man, to release new content, right? To release new heroes, and for some reason they're opting to do this whole season thing, and that's because they have a whole battle pass. And I feel like the season thing is also a problem. Why are we getting season 1, season 2, season 3? Why are you releasing a bundle of content? Just keep supplying content until you get to a point where the game is in a comfortable position, and then you do a bundle, right? You don't release like, okay, well here's like 3 new things. All right, see y'all for like 5 months. And hey, we're back with a bundle. Hey, we're back with more 3 things or whatever the freak. Like, you gotta stop doing that. You gotta actually like keep the content flowing at all times, at least until the game gets in a comfortable position, right? At least until it gets out of its infancy and it can start sustaining on its own, right? You can't just fill it with cosmetics and then expect everybody to stay, because again, it's a financial minority. Barely anybody is actually paying for this. It's mostly just the same 5 people that are giving you money, right? And I feel like another thing like that has happened with Battlefield 2042, right? Nobody wants to play Battlefield 2042, right? But I don't even think it's because of its launch, right? Because this is nowhere near the first time a freaking DICE game has launched horribly. So this is nowhere near the first time. But like the difference between Battlefront 2 and Battlefield 2042, right, is that the content flow is so much better on Battlefront 2. Now Battlefront 2 did have a horrific launch. It had a horrific launch, but guess what? There are more players on Battlefront. There were way more players a year or 2 years after Battlefront 2 released than a year or 2 years after freaking Battlefield 2042 release. And it has been a full 2 years, but you get the point. There were way more people still playing Battlefront 2 than people playing Battlefield 2042. Why is that? Because because developers knew that once they fixed their game, they had to keep adding content. They had to keep adding content. Battlefield 2042 did not keep adding content. They added some crappy guns, which didn't work, right? Because the gunplay in that game is already so bad. So they add weapons, sure, and that is content, right? But again, the gunplay in that game is already freaking horrible. So they don't even feel, no matter what gun they added, it didn't feel good, right? And then they added skins, which, oh, and I really find it ironic that despite how awful Battlefield 2042's launches was, the game still could be relatively successful or relatively light if they just actually, kept the content flow going. Or even better, if they just released a full game in the first place, which leads me to my third point.
Fortnite Battle Pass, booted up my PC, cause I need
of why live service games are not working too well. It has become an excuse for studios not to release finished games. It has become an excuse, and it's become a reason. It's become a reason for developers to release half-baked, half-finished games that are really, really, really dry on the content. Now, this is kind of similar to the last 2 points, right? But I want to drive it home how little content these games release with, right? It kind of feel like these are diet multiplayer games. That's what live service games kind of feel like. They feel like multiplayer games that they kind of just quit halfway through making, right? The games don't have to be as broken as 2042 either. I'm talking about just in content in general. It's just a desert. It's just a desert. There's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. For instance, it's crazy to me how much more content games like Battlefield 4 have compared to Battlefield 2042, or Halo 4 has compared to Halo Infinite. Or Overwatch 1 compared to Overwatch 2, for example. Even though Overwatch 2 technically has more, it feels like they're getting less, right? Because it's the same game, it's just less fun and less mechanically deep, and it just feels like more of the same, except just less. Live service games just feel like an excuse for developers to be like, okay, well, we'll release it now, but we'll fix it later. And then, that's not new, right? They didn't start with live service. They've been doing that for freaking years now. Lord knows they've been doing it for years now. But I feel like now they've come up with an official term to do it under. It's live service, so we're going to release it with, only so much content, but don't worry, we have a roadmap. It's all coming later. When you look at a game like Battlefield 4, maps, guns, destruction, physics, it's so much. It's so much more polish than any live service game you can point to right now. Other than Warframe and stuff like that. The successful ones, but the ones that fail, right? Multiversus, Overwatch 2. I'll just throw that in there, even though it's technically not failed yet, but it's gonna die. Let's see. Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2042. You know what I'm saying? It is that game alone has so much more polish. Why? Because they weren't worried about updating it later. They weren't worried about that. You know what they wanted to do? They wanted to release the game and never have to think about it again. They wanted to release the game, never have to think about it again. So you know what? They just made sure the game was finished No, we're not talking about the launch. Wait a minute. I didn't say bug free. I said content wise. The game is the game was actually finished. In fact, let me draw a quick parallel between Battlefield 2042 and Battlefield 4. Battlefield 4 is a game which did have a terrible launch. The game was buggy as I don't know what. Freaking stuff just didn't work, right? But once the bugs were fixed, once the smoke cleared, suckers realized that there was actually a very good game here. Battlefield 2042 had a terrible launch, extremely buggy, awful. Everything was bad, nothing worked. But once the smoke was cleared, suckers realized that the game was still bad because it didn't have any content to sustain itself, even if the bugs weren't there. So, yeah, that's just another point, of why, games that have content are going to live 1,000 times longer, like that start with content, that are going to live years longer than games that release with no content and are reliant on constant updates, which never happen, to save them. It was plentiful. It was full of content, maybe even too much at points. The game was actually finished. Live service games are not finished. But the excuses, okay, well, they're not finished, but they're supposed to release a foundation and then they build up, right? And I do think a game like Warframe has more content than a game like Battlefield 2040, not Battlefield 20, obviously, but Battlefield 4. A game like Warframe does have a ton, has much more content compared to dang near every other multiplayer game out there. Seriously. But 99% of these live service games are not Warframe. So they just end up releasing with half-baked content, and then they just stay that way. They just stay that way, and, they may build on it a little bit, but again, that's usually in the form of cosmetics and not in the form of actual content, which still keeps it lagging behind, games like Battlefield 4, Titanfall 2, another game that has quite a bit of content. It has a lot of content. It would be so hype if freaking, live service games actually stopped being live service and actually started focusing on making a decent game the first time. How about making a content, plentiful game the first time, a content-filled game the first time? Why does Suicide Squad Kills Justice League need to be live service? Are you just communicating to me that the game is going to have barely any content? But don't worry, we'll add it later. You won't. You won't add it later. Judging by, and every single one of these companies are doing the exact same thing, by the way. They say, oh, we're going to do it later, but no, you're not. You're not. Why does Suicide Squad Kills Justice League need to be live service? Why don't you just give us a full game the first time? Now, I'm not here to, say, oh my gosh, that game is going to suck. Actually, I think I'm more optimistic about it than most people on the internet right now. So I'm not trying to say that, oh, that game is guaranteed to suck, right? But I am saying that we should be very wary of that live service model. Because, most of the time, and this is just true, it's an excuse for games releasing half-baked, right? So, that's it for this video. This video has gone long enough already. I'm going to have to edit some of this down, but thank you guys for listening. Let me know about your thoughts in the comments on live service games, on the state of we sort of already talked about the state of multiplayer games now, but I feel like this live service stuff is really, really not helping. So, yeah, guys, let me know what your thoughts are. Have a good day. Along with Games Guy, out.